What's going on, everybody? It's Ian. New Hearthstone balance changes. Announced yesterday, coming out pretty soon. And it's not really a secret. Hearthstone's been kind of awful the last couple of weeks. Just really just druids everywhere. This is the major problem. So Hearthstone team stepped in. Applaud them for it. It's probably the fastest balance change reaction they've had, I think, ever. So we'll take a look at these balance changes. I think overall they're a step in the right direction. I don't know if they'll actually help out the game too much. But let's take a look at them. If you look here from the good old Vicious Syndicate data report, this is from last week. So, more than 30% druid. Everything else is less than 15%. And I think it says here that at Legend, almost 40% at Legend. And there's more druid players right now than there were during the height of mid-range shaman and like the Karazhan meta, which is pretty huge. Mid-range shaman was the deck in the Karazhan meta. And it was really overpowering. It was the kind of deck where it didn't have any auto win matchups, but it was so good in every matchup. I don't think it had any matchups less than like a 45% win rate, which is pretty impressive. So, thinking Jade Druid is in a similar position. Both Jade and Aggro Druid, pretty similar position here. Like Jade Druid has unfavorable matchups against Aggro Druid, Token Druid, Exodia Mage, and Aggro Paladin, and that's it. Everything else is favorable. And Token Druid, or Aggro Druid, has a favorable matchup against everything except Big Priest, which I think is a bad meme deck. So let's take a look at this. First big change, probably the biggest change I think, is to Innervate. So Innervate's going from gain 2 mana crystals this turn to gain 1 mana crystal this turn. Honestly, this change I feel is kind of heavy-handed. Innervate is really a core mechanic to Druid. It's like you play 2 Innervates in every Druid deck I think ever. Maybe not ever. I think maybe like Wild Aggro Druid maybe doesn't play Innervate, but it's just such a powerful effect being able to, Dark Ritual on any turn, right? Like, you can turn 1 play a 3-drop, turn 4 play a 6-drop. It's just really just an absurd effect. Yeah, and I think Team 5 gives these alternative refresh 2 mana crystals, gain 2 mana crystals, increase the cost to 1, gain 6 and increase the cost to 4. I think if there were any really good changes, I think my favorite one is actually gain 6 mana crystals, but it costs 4. It still keeps the same, like, the card is still Innervate, like it still gives you 2 extra mana crystals, but it just makes it so that you can't power out like 3 drops on turn 1, which is really just ridiculous and shouldn't be allowed to happen. Innervate is a card that I think probably needed to be changed. It's just a very problematic card, I think, for the design space of Hearthstone. It's hard to give Druid like big cards that are good when Innervate is still a card, like Innervate is still around. It's hard to give Druid good card draw when Innervate is still around, just because the big downside of playing Innervate is you're giving yourself a card disadvantage. If you Innervate a vicious fledgling and it gets frost bolted, that's obviously a card disadvantage. So that was really the big downside of playing Innervate. But when you introduce cards like Ultimate Infestation that lets you to refill your hand immediately, or even to a certain extent like Gadgetzan Auctioneer, it kind of negates the downside of Innervate. It's a card that needed changing, I think. I dislike the way they did the change. I think the card is basically unplayable now. Counterfeit Coin, this card is Counterfeit Coin. Sees play in Rogue just because it enables all the combos, and Rogue, like the Gadgetzan turn in Rogue, is such an important part of what that class does. And Gadgetzan works in Druid too, but not to the same extent, right? So, and it's saying Rogue has also all the combo activators. You can play an Edwin earlier, bigger. Counterfeit Coin is good in Rogue just because like combo is what the class does, but combo is not what Druid does. Druid ramps and plays big things, and I don't think Innervate's going to see any play at all. Is it a change that need to happen? Probably. I kind of wish they did it a different way. I like the gain 6 mana crystals this turn and increase the cost to 4. I think that would have been a better change, actually. Maybe a little too complicated for like the basic set, but I like the overall change is okay. I'm not unfavorable towards the change. It's okay. Alright, next change we got here. Fiery War Axe. 2 mana to 3 mana. Okay, well, they say it right here. Fiery War Axe has been a powerful warrior card. It's a weapon of powerful warrior weapons in the Laws of Hearthstone. That's very true. If I had to single out one card as just the best card in the game, I think I would probably say it's War Axe. It's the most ridiculous board control you could possibly ask for. It's 2 mana for 6 damage dealt at 2 targets. That's insane. Not only is it insane and for board control, it's just insane going face. And 2 mana for 6 damage. It's ridiculous in Pirate Warrior. It's the best card in Pirate Warrior. If you're playing War, you always mulligan for War X. You never throw it away. The card is just, it's such a core part, similar to Innervate really. It's such a core part of what Warrior is. Um, and I don't know if it deserved a nerf though. I think um, the deck that hurts the most is Pirate Warrior, and people say a lot of stuff about Pirate Warrior. Brainless aggro deck. Brainless aggro decks serve a very important purpose in Hearthstone. If it weren't for decks like Pirate Warrior or like Face Hunter, then the game would just be Jade Druids and like big greedy control decks and like combo decks. There would be any punish for playing that deck, right? Like, and if that was the game we're playing, then the games take 20 minutes each, and Hearthstone would suck. Like that's really just the fact of the matter. Um, Warx hurting Pirate Warrior this much because Warx is one of the best cards in Pirate Warrior is really not a good thing, because as you look here, the only deck that was one of the few decks that was good against Jade Druid is Pirate Warrior, I think. Actually, yeah, Pirate Warrior is neutral against Jade Druid according to the data. It's about a 50-50 matchup, but it's not one of the decks that just rolls over and dies to Jade Druid, so it's like one of the few decks other than Jade Druid that's efficient to ladder with. And like Pirate Warrior has a good win spread, I think. So yeah, it loses to Druid, it loses to Aggro Druid, and other than that, there's not any super unfavorable matchups. I think, and the other problem with nerfing Warx is that it's huge in Control Warrior. Like, if you don't have Warx in Control Warrior, like Taunt Warrior, you don't really have that early game board control, since Warrior doesn't have the direct damage spells that other classes like Mage has. So it's a lot harder to play the control game if you don't have the Warx, because you can't maintain board control, not fall super far behind. The other change they considered for Fire Warx is lower its attack to 2. It's a 2-mana 2/2 weapon. I think that would have had a similar effect to what it is now. Now, it's worth noting that I don't think Warx is unplayable. I think it's far from unplayable right now, actually. It's, like, not that bad at all in the slower Warrior decks. I think you definitely cut it from Power Warrior. 3 mana for a 3/2 is probably not good enough, but it's still, like, a solid card. Like, you see Rallying Blades, you play Control Pal, and like, Hunter decks will just play Eaglehorn Bow even if they don't play any secrets. Rogues play Shadow Blade just because 3 mana 3/2 weapon is really good, I think Warx still does end up seeing play in slower Warrior decks, but it's probably, I don't think it makes the cut in Power Warrior. I could be wrong about that. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if I was wrong about it, but ultimately they didn't gut the card, which I'm happy about. Like, it's not unplayable now, but it's just much worse. So, and that really goes to show how absurd the card is, that they can make it 1 mana more and it's still like very playable as a card. Ultimately, I don't know if I like the change. I think if there are metas, like if you go back like a year where Warrior had like 5 tier 1 or tier 2 decks, it had like Control Warrior, Patron Warrior, Dragon Warrior, Pirate Warrior, and like Tempo Warrior. Like, that was the time to nerf Warx, because that was really where it showed. Like, Warx is so good, and Warx is 2F in all this decks. So like, that was the time to nerf Warx, I think. I think in this current meta, the only good Warrior deck is Pirate Warrior. Like, I don't think Taunt Warrior is very good. Control Warrior is basically dead. So the real reason to nerf it is because of Pirate Warrior, but I don't know if Pirate Warrior is that oppressive in this meta. There's a lot of life gain and taunt in this meta. You see, like, Jade Druid, it's a 50-50 matchup, but it's because Jade Druid has really good taunt. Like, it has and Innervate, so it can Innervate out like J Behemoths and Primordial Drakes, and that really just wrecks Pirate Warrior. But that being said, if they don't have that, like, Pirate Warrior is favored in the matchup, I would say, for the most part. So ultimately, it's an okay change. It's similar to Innervate. Like, it's probably a card that ended up needing change eventually, but I'm not exactly in favor of the way they did it, or the time they did it, I guess, in this case. But yeah, I mean, the card's not bad. It'll still see play, I think, for sure. Alright, next card we got here is Hex. Hex is a card I've always been kind of vocal about needing change, just because I'm pretty sure Hex has just always been the best removal in the game. Like, there's no card. You look at Polymorph, and it's a very similar card, but it costs 1 more mana, and that's what they're changing it to line up with Polymorph, just because Polymorph is a really good card, and you see it play in like most slower Mage decks, but Hex is just, being 1 mana less makes it available to see play in like all non-face Shaman decks. Like, I guess Shaman, yeah, so Hex doesn't see play in Aggro Shaman, like Token Shaman right now, but it seems playing mid-range Shaman, Control Shaman, like combo decks. They all play Hex, because it's just the most efficient removal in the game. It's 3 mana kill anything, really. And 0-1 taunt is I think worse than a 1-1, so I think the effect is actually better than polymorph. I think this is, yes, the Hex isn't really seeing play in the current match because there's no slower Shaman decks, but it's just saying we're not making Hex due to the current power level problem, but I agree that Hex being a part of the game makes Shaman removal, like, now it opens up more options for Shaman removal for them to design it and for more, like, current options to see play. Like, from the newest set, for example, like, Avalanche, it does, like, it freezes something and deals 3 to the adjacent minions. My first instinct with this card is like, why would you ever play this over Hex? Like, you just never played over Hex. And the other cards too, stuff like, whatchamacallit, 2-mana deal 4, overload 2 to a 2-mana deal 4 to a minion, overload 2. You never played over Hex. They're just cards you'd never play over Hex, right? But now the Hex is not that, like, ubiquitous. This is the removal you play in a Shaman deck. I think this is probably I think this is my favorite change, just because Hex is just a really, really good Hearthstone card. It nerfing it to 4 mana, it's not unplayable. I think you still end up playing as a 1 of, maybe 2 of, in slower Shaman decks. Maybe not mid-range decks anymore, but in Control Shaman you still play the Hex, like, somewhat a polymorph, really. Pretty good change overall. Alright, Murloc War Leader. Changing from other Murlocs have +2/+1 to other Murlocs have +2 attack. Alright, so this is another change I think that was necessary. I think War Leader is just far too powerful of a card, and it kind of flew under the radar because Murlocs have kind of been a meme in Hearthstone for, like, the first couple of years of its existence, but in the last year, maybe, like, yeah, probably about a year, Murloc Paladin has really come to the forefront as, like, a really powerful deck, just because Paladin in itself has really good support tools to, like, support a creature-based deck, but they didn't have those since, like, Muster and Minibot have rotated. They didn't have, like, the good on-curve dudes to support the mid-range and, like, aggressive strategies. But Murlocs came in with, the insane Murlocs, like Rockpool Hunter, the 2/1 buff a dude in your hand by 1, and they already had the really good ones like War Leader and the 1/2 that gets +1 attack whenever you summon a Murloc in the classic set. And once you bring that all together, it makes for, like, a really not oppressive deck. I don't think Murloc Paladin's ever been oppressive. It's just been really good since at least a couple sets now, I want to say, since Ngoro at least. And I think before, so yeah, I think since Mean Streets, the deck's been really good. And so by nerfing War Leader, which I think is just the most dumb card in the deck, I would say, like, it doesn't feel good to lose to a War Leader. And if they play, like, turn 1 Murloc, turn 2 Murloc, turn 3 War Leader, and you can't kill the War Leader, you kind of just insta lose the game, which is pretty stupid. And I like this change just because it's not just, like, unlike, for Hex and War X, even though I think Hex is a good change, it's not, like, a whole lot of thought put into the change, I feel like. Or it's not like I'm sure they put a lot of thought into it, but it's not like an elegant solution. It's just, we raise the mana cost by 1. This obviously makes the card worse. So by changing the effect of War Leader, it actually changes, like, the snowbally nature of the card, because sure, it's still a snowbally card, because if you play it on a board where you already have dudes, it's a lot better. But by making it so it doesn't buff health anymore, it doesn't, like, discourage control players and mid-range players to play board clears, because, like, now you can play, Maelstrom Portals, or you can play Lightning Storms, things like that, to actually clear the board of Murlocs, which you couldn't do before in the original War Leader. And I think that it's just a much more elegant change than the other ones. Again, I think this card is still playable. I think you still play it in aggro Murlocs, just because, like, you would play Savage Roar. If I had the opportunity to play Savage Roar and Murloc Paladin, I probably would. And this is almost Savage Roar, except it also is a 3/3 body with adding some Murloc. The card's still pretty good. It's slightly worse now. I think that's what it needed. I think Murloc Paladin will still be decent, but the real important change, I think, to this is that Murloc Paladin is not favored against so it's favored against Jades, and it's 50-50 against Token. I think this change actually makes it so that it probably goes down to, like, 50-50 against Jades. War Leader is one of the really important cards to hit in the deck, because it makes your entire board of, like, 2/1 and 1/1 Murlocs not die to swipe, which is super important, because Jade Druid wants to hit that swipe. The two cards are looking for in the deck are Swipe and Spreading Plague. So, making it so that you can't kill, now you can kill all the Murlocs potentially with Swipe, it's very detrimental to the matchup, I think. And again, like, Jade Druid gets the nerf in Innervate and Spreading Plague, but by nerfing Pirate Warrior and Murloc Paladin, I feel like they both even. I'll talk about this a little bit later, after I talk about Spreading Plague. Spreading Plague goes from 5 to 6 mana, is the last change I want to say, yeah. this is a good change too. Spreading Plague is just a bad card to play against. It de-incentivizes. I don't think that's a word. It disincentivizes you to play minions, which is really just not a good mechanic in such an interactive game like Hearthstone. And you could say that board clears also do this, but if you're playing like a deck with a lot of small tokens, Spreading Plague is like even better than board clear. Like instead of like clearing their board, you're playing your own minions, and you're playing a class you have like access to like whatever Strong Shield Defender, like is all your taunts buffs, and you have the board buffs with like Mark of the Lotus, things like that. The card's just absurdly powerful. If you hit it on 3 minions, that's really good. If you hit it on 4 minions, it's ridiculous. Um, and ultimately, like it becomes the kind of like Reno, where if you're playing a face deck, if you're like Power Warrior or something, you need to win the game before they drop the Spreading Plague, because if they play like 3 or 4 1/5 taunts, it's really hard to come back from that. Overall, 5 to 6 mana is a pretty big change because it gives those aggro decks an additional turn to either kill them or just build up a big enough board or enough burst in hand to end the game. Pretty good change overall. What I would rather seen is maybe like change it to 5 mana, summon a 1/3 Scarab for each enemy minion. I think that would have been a little bit better, just because it makes it so that it can't like insta win the game against token decks, and it's also just like a little bit worse to just play like the board buffs on. Overall, though, pretty good change, I think. I'm not angry about it. It's a good change. All right, and then the change they were considering Ultimate Infestation. They considered changing it all the 5s to 4s. I don't think that actually fixes the problem with Ultimate Infestation. I think it actually arguably makes the card better, because one of the big problems with Ultimate Infestation is that if you're playing like Ramp Druid, or your Jade Idols get Skulking Geisted, then drawing 5 is actually kind of not very good. Like, especially if you have 2 of them in your deck, drawing 5 puts you pretty close to fatigue, and a lot of times you're overdrawing cards, especially if you're playing the second Ultimate Infestation. I think drawing less cards might actually make the card not better, because it's dealing 1 less damage and getting -1/-1 stats, but 1 less card is like actually probably a good thing. So that, I think that's a good thing they didn't make that change. Yeah, so they're saying that with the change to Innervate, it's gonna be harder to get to Ultimate Infestation, and like it's gonna be you're less likely to not be ahead on board when you play Spreading Plague. Ultimate Infestation is the kind of card where if you're at head on board, or it's like a neutral board and you're kind of ahead, or it's like contested in how many cards each player has played and how many cards they have in hand, playing Ultimate Infestation just wins the game. So, to a certain extent, the changes to Druid might make it less good, but you still play 2 of Ultimate Infestation in any non-aggro Druid deck, I think. So, I think, yeah, I think Spreading Plague is actually the more problematic card than Ultimate Infestation. I don't know if Spreading Plague will see any play at 6 mana. It'll probably still see a little bit of play, and like, if not Jade Druid, Ramp Druid still needs the effect, I think, but yeah, Ultimate Infestation still is going to be really good, and I wouldn't be surprised if, like, in the next round of balance change, it ends up getting changed. Ice Block was also looked at. I think it's almost guaranteed. They said, it's basically, we're going to Hall of Fame this card at the end of the year, which probably is necessary. It's just really not a fun effect to play against, so we'll talk about that when it happens in 8 months or whatever, but, that's about it for the changes and, like, the proposed changes. The most important takeaway from this, I feel like, is that I don't think Jade Druid and Aggro Druid got really any worse at all. The other thing I want to talk about was Big Priest. So Aggro Druid, the only deck it's not good against is Big Priest, and I actually hate Big Priest as a deck, and I kind of wish it got changed. It's definitely not like an oppressive deck as it stands right now. People still kind of see it as a meme deck, but the deck does such broken things. Like, it kind of breaks the entire mana like system of Hearthstone by allowing you to like power out like your charges for 4 mana instead of 10. Like, that's really just should not be a thing that's allowed to happen in Hearthstone. And the deck is such a high roll deck. I honestly, it takes like very little skill to play. Like, you draw Barnes on turn 4, you play him, and you hope you hit your charge or something, and then you play your res effects. Like, it's not a difficult deck to play at all, and it's just exceedingly unfun to play against. And the only real way to beat it, if you're playing an aggro deck, is just hope they don't hit Barnes, which is not a good strategy. It's pretty similar to hoping they don't hit Reno, which I also thought was pretty bad design. Kind of similar to Spreading Plague too, in a sense. Like, you hope they don't hit the Spreading Plague on 5, so you can keep face rolling them, right? Big Priest, though, it just does degenerate things that shouldn't be allowed in the game. I don't know what they would change. Maybe like changing the actual like way Barnes works. I don't know if changing any cards is necessary, but I feel like changing the way Barnes works to make it where it doesn't actually resurrect minions at full health, it just like resurrects the 1/1 versions of them, may be better. I feel like that's a change that might need to happen eventually, especially if the intention of these changes actually happens, which is Jade Druid gets worse and slower priest decks have a chance to like kind of come to the forefront and shine. Because priest is good right now. Priest is in a good spot right now with Reno Priest and Big Priest. I think there's a change that might end up needing to happen. But overall, I think so. The nerfs to Jade Druid and Aggro Druid were fairly significant. Innervate's basically unplayable now. I don't think Aggro Druid losing Innervate is actually that big a deal. They just play instead of like Bowmares and stuff, just more lower to the ground things. They play like maybe like a Karis Veterans and things like that. I don't think it's a huge problem for Aggro Druid. It's definitely more of a problem in Jade Druid. They can't like power Jades earlier. But I mean, as long as Jade Idol still exists, I think Jade Druid will still be a very good deck. And the big thing is, like, while they nerfed Jade Druid, they also nerfed two of the best decks against it. Like, Pirate Warrior was favored, and, like, no, Murloc Paladin's favored, Pirate Warrior's like 50-50, which are two of the better decks against Jade Druid. Like, let's be real here. Any slow deck just rolls over and dies to Jade Druid. So, um, yeah, I think overall these changes won't really have the intended effect. I think individually most of the changes are actually pretty good, but as they come together into a meta, I don't think it's going to be a healthy meta. I think the meta is going to be pretty similar. It's going to be pretty similar to the Shaman changes where they nerfed like Small Time Buccaneer and I think Spirit Claws. Um, like sure, it made aggro Shaman not as good, but it just made mid range Shaman. It just created a meta where mid range Shaman became oppressive. So like, I think that's what's going to end up happening with this kind of. If it changes Jade Druid to the point where like you can't win against aggro decks as consistently with it now, which could happen, I think just the aggro Druid is going to become even more problematic just because of the meta that develops. So yeah, overall, I don't know if the change will have the intended effect, but not bad changes overall. Most of them are pretty necessary, especially like Hex. And maybe Hex and Spreading Plague, I think they're two better changes. War Leader's pretty good too. Rest is okay, Innervate's okay. That's about it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hearthstone's a bad game. Bye.